The helicopter passed over the city before sunrise, a dark shape against a sky washed in cold blue. Its rotors thudded through the glass of St. Gabriel Medical Center and rattled the windows for a few seconds, just enough to make the fluorescent lights hum. In the elevator, Dr. Maya Carter felt the vibration through the metal wall. Her hand moved on its own. 2 fingers found the braided paracord on her left wrist and rolled it once, twice. The cord was faded olive and sand, the colors rubbed dull. Under it, hidden a thin scar, ran along her skin like a white thread. The elevator dinged. She opened her hand, let the cord fall flat, and stepped out into the surgical floor. The night shift was supposed to be almost over. The corridors were quiet in that heavy hospital way, all chemical smell and machine noises, footsteps softened by polished tile. A nurse pushed an empty wheelchair. A janitor wiped a small dark stain from the linoleum as if it had never existed. In Trauma 2, the world had not gotten the memo about almost over. The room was close and bright and loud. A young man lay on the table, his torso a mess of purple bruises and swelling. The smell of burned flesh from the cautery knife cut through the antiseptic. "Pressure's dropping, 70/40, someone called. "Retract to me," Maya said. Her voice was not loud. It did not have to be. The scrub nurse leaned in without looking at her face, eyes fixed where Maya's hands were working inside the opened abdomen. Blood pooled dark and viscous, sliding along the plastic drape toward the suction tip. "Clamp," Maya said. The instrument slapped into her palm. She did not have to look. The clamp bit down on a spurting vessel. The suction hissed. The monitor beeped its anxious rhythm. In the corner, Dr. Bencho watched with his hands tucked in tight against his chest. His mask hid his mouth, but not the way his eyes tracked every motion she made. "She's not even breathing hard," he muttered, not sure if he meant that for himself or the circulating nurse beside him. Maya did breathe. In through the nose slow, out through slightly parted lips. The pattern was as steady as the beeps of the monitor. Her shoulders were relaxed, elbows close to her body, movements short and exact. "Okay, Pshinina, Buzz." "Okay," she said at last. "We are good. Close." The room exhaled with her. Later, at the scrub sink, warm water ran over her fingers and down the steel basin, turning from pink to clear. The clock on the far wall read 7:12 a.m. Her shift should have ended 12 minutes ago. Her reflection in the stainless steel was a blur of dark hair pulled back, eye-shadowed mask string marks on her cheeks. "You going home or living here now?" Elena Morales asked from the doorway. The charge nurse's hair was twisted into a messy knot. There were half moons under her eyes and dried coffee on her scrub top. "I hear there are beds in the call room," Maya said. "Those are not beds. Those are padded regrets." Elena came closer, lowered her voice. "That kid would not have made it without you." "We all did that one," Maya answered. Elena's look said she did not believe that for a second. Before she could say it out loud, the intercom crackled overhead. "Dr. Carter to administration, Dr. Carter to administration." Elena lifted a brow. "That sounds like fun." "It never does," Maya said. She dried her hands and pulled off her cap. Her hair sprang out in loose, imperfect curls. She smoothed them back with wet fingers and walked toward the elevator again, shoes whispering on the floor. The administrative suite felt like a different building. No smell of iodine or blood. The carpet muted her steps. The walls held framed awards and news articles with smiling faces and words like excellence and top-ranked. Dr. Richard Halpern's office overlooked the river. The glass wall behind him let in pale winter light and a view of Chicago waking up. He did not turn when she entered. He was studying a file on his desk. "Close the door, Dr. Carter," he said. She did. His hair was silver and perfect. His tie was straight navy with a small pin that marked some award. There were no wrinkles in his white coat. The only mess in the room was the folder in front of him, thick and open papers fanned out. Her name was printed on the tab. "Your schedule has you off at 7, he said, eyes still on the file. "You are not in an operating room right now, are you?" "No," she said. "We finished." He looked up as if annoyed that she had not given him more words. "Sit," he said. She sat. He tapped one page with a manicured nail. "I have spent the past week trying to understand your paperwork. It is incomplete. There are gaps in your civilian board certification, missing letters, no clear record of your case log. The military keeps most of it closed," Maya said. "They sent what they could. And yet," he said, lifting another page, "your references write things like performed under fire and unshakable in combat situations." He said the words as if quoting from a science fiction script. "They were being literal," Maya said. Halpern's mouth tightened. "This is a level 1 trauma center," he said. "We do not play soldier here. We do not operate on rumor. We do not hang our liability on classified stories from overseas." Maya watched the small pulse in his neck, the way his hand pressed flatter on the paper when he said liability. I have not asked you to, she said. No, he replied. What you have done is arrive with half a file and an impressive myth. Until your credentials are fully verified and approved, you will not act as lead surgeon. You will not make unilateral decisions in my hospital. Is that clear? He held her gaze, waiting for friction. Clear, she said. He seemed almost disappointed by how easily it came. Good, he said. On her way out, she paused by the glass wall. The river below was gray and slow. Another civilian medevac helicopter passed in the distance, small and white, its rotors flickering like a heartbeat against the sky. She felt the vibration under her ribs. Her fingers found the paracord again. By nightfall, the snow had started a thin, sharp kind that stung when the automatic doors opened. The ambulance backed up to the bay in a scream of brakes. Its rear doors flew open. The paramedics were already shouting. Male 38 stab wound to the abdomen, massive blood loss pressure tanking. We lost pulses twice in the ride. The smell of wet pavement and exhaust rode in with them, along with the copper reek of fresh blood. Get him to Trauma 1, Elena called. Her voice cut through the noise. Ben, you are with me. Maya was standing behind the nurse's station, finishing a note. She had no real reason to still be there to write. Her pen stopped. The gurney shot past wheels clattering. The man on it was pale gray lips, blue at the edges. A dark red stain had spread across his shirt and dried in his beard. Someone had taped a packet of gauze to his abdomen. It was soaked through. They rolled him into Trauma 1. Monitors beeped to life. A blood pressure cuff hissed and squeezed his arm. Pressure 60/30, Ben said, and his voice shook. We need the trauma attending, the on-call ER physician said. Page Dr. Wexler. He is on call for nights. Already did, coworker. A clerk called through the door. Then we wait, the ER physician said. He loosened his grip on the gauze. There was fear behind his glasses. The monitor beeped faster, then slower. Maya stepped to the doorway. The room was full of bodies. No one was moving toward the scalpel tray. How long? She asked. The nurse looked up. Wexler said he's finishing a consult, 10 minutes. The man's eyelids fluttered. His eyes rolled without focusing. His chest rose shallow and fast. He does not have 10 minutes, Maya said. We do not have his consent signed, the ER doctor said. We do not have surgical clearance. Your privileges are limited. You are not cleared to open him. He sounded like he was reciting a policy manual over the sound of someone drowning. Maya looked at the monitor. The line dipped longer between each beat. She could hear the quiet buzzing of the fluorescent lights, the wet click of the suction on standby. She smelled metal and bleach and something sour under it. The snow slanted in the small window high on the wall. Her hand touched the paracord, once, tight. Then she walked past the ER doctor. Excuse me, she said. Ben moved aside when he saw her expression. Elena's eyes met hers for a fraction of a second. There was a question there. Then there was only trust. Prep him, Maya said. We are opening. Maya, the ER doctor said, we cannot, not without clearance. If I do not act, she said, he dies. She pulled on gloves, snapped them at the wrist. The scrub tech pulled up the emergency laparotomy tray, hands moving fast now. The room shifted around her, everyone finding their places as if some center of gravity had moved. Name, she asked as she picked up the scalpel. Marcus Dale, a paramedic answered from the corner. Got jumped outside a bar. Marcus, she said, looking down into his slack face for a heartbeat. It is Maya. Stay with me. She made the midline incision. The blade slid through skin and subcutaneous fat, and the smell of opened flesh joined the room. Blood welled up faster than it should. Suction, she said. More light. Pack the quadrants. Her hands moved with a speed that looked calm from the outside. Inside, a thin, familiar line of focus drew everything else out. The chaos in the room faded. The buzzing lights, the snow, the complaints died away. She found the source, a torn vessel deep beside the liver, pulsing out the last of his pressure. Clamp, she said. She placed it. The spray turned to a slow ooze. His pressure is coming up, Ben said, disbelief in his voice. 80/50, heart rate slowing. Maya did not reply. She sutured the vessel with small, tight motions, the needle pushing through tissue, the thread pulling the edges together, holding. The monitor beeped a more regular rhythm. After a time, the room grew less tense. People breathed again. Get him to blood, she said. 2 units now, then cross-match. We will close. It was only when she stepped back from the table that she realized her shoulders hurt. She stripped off her gloves and walked to the sink. The water ran pink again, then clear. For a minute, the only sound was the steady beep of Marcus Dale's heartbeat in the next room. The silence broke with the sharp clap of a door. Halpern's voice reached the scrub area before he did. Where is she? He appeared in the doorway, white coat, crisp hair, still perfect. His eyes landed on Maya at the sink. Then they moved to the operating room to the fresh incision to the chart with her name written on the surgeon line. You, he said. Elena stepped forward. Richard, he was crashing. We did not have time to wait. We have rules for a reason, he snapped. You do not cut open a patient without authorization. Maya turned off the water. Drops clung to her fingers. He was bleeding out, she said. He has a pulse now. At what cost? Halpern jabbed a finger at her chart. You do not have full privileges. You are not board certified here yet. You violated protocol, you ignored direct limitations, and you exposed this hospital to a disaster. He was going to die on that table, Maya said. That man is a lawsuit waiting to happen, Halpern said. His face flushed dark. You do not get to decide when the rules apply. She let the words hang for a moment, then she said, authorization does not restart a heart. Something in the room shifted. Several people looked down at their shoes. Halpern straightened as if pulling himself up on anger. You are finished here, Hipeizuki, he said, effective immediately. He signaled to security. 2 guards in dark uniforms appeared in the hall, uncertain but already moving in. Elena took a step closer to Maya. Richard, she just saved a life. And now she can find another hospital to endanger, he said. I will not have this place turned into some war story experiment. He raised his voice, making sure the nurses at the station could hear. Everyone pay attention. This is what happens when you think you know better than procedure. Maya reached up and unclipped her badge. Her name and photo hung for a second on the plastic. She placed it gently on the counter beside the sink. Her hands were still damp. She looked at Halpern without heat. Next time, she said, fire me after the patient dies, not before. For a second, the room was silent. Then the guards cleared their throats and gestured toward the exit. She walked between them. No one stopped her. A few eyes met hers. Mo slid away. In the sliding glass doorway, the cold hit her. Snowflakes dusted her hair, melted against the warmth of her skin. The parking lot lights turned the falling flakes into a curtain of white. She crossed the asphalt to her pickup, breath clouding in front of her. Her fingers fumbled with the keys for a moment, clumsy after gloves and clamps. She got in, shut the door, and the quiet inside the cab settled around her like another layer of snow. For a moment, she just sat. Across the lot, the lit windows of St. Gabriel shone against the dark, small rectangles of yellow stacked on each other. Somewhere inside, Marcus Dale was lying, in recovery still alive, his heart pushing blood through the vessel she had tied. Maya rested her arms on the steering wheel and let her forehead touch the cool plastic. Her thumb rolled the paracord on her wrist, feeling every knot. She turned the key. The engine coughed, then started. The snow kept falling. The snow made a soft hiss against the windshield as it fell. Inside the cab, the truck smelled like old coffee and vinyl that had seen better days. The engine idled a low, uneven rumble. Maya sat with her hands on the steering wheel and her forehead resting lightly on her wrist. The paracord pressed into her skin. In the side mirror, the hospital glowed in fragments of yellow windows cut up by falling white. A light swept across the mirror. Headlights swung into the lot, too bright, too fast. Tires crunched over the thin crust of snow. The truck shuddered as another vehicle came to a hard stop across the front bumper. Maya lifted her head. A dark sport utility truck with government plates blocked her in. Its engine was still roaring. 2 men in navy parkas stepped out, breath rising in clouds. One of them had the stance she did not forget, the way weight settled over the hips, ready to move in any direction. He pulled off his cap as he walked toward her, and the hair at his temples was damp with sweat despite the cold. She cracked the window an inch. Snowflakes slid inside and melted on the door. Dr. Carter, he said. The voice hit a place in her head before the name did. Jason, she said. Commander Jason Reed crouched slightly so he could see her. His eyes were the same dark blue, but there were new lines at the corners carved in by sun and strain. We said we would only call if it was bad, he said. Her fingers closed around the steering wheel. How bad? He glanced up toward the hospital. Through the drifting snow, the red light of the helipad beacon pulsed on the roof. The low thump of rotor blades rolled over them a second later, heavier than the civilian helicopter she had heard all week. They diverted us from Norfolk, Winnig, he said. We are out of time. It is his chest. We need you inside. Right now. Jason, she said slowly, this place just fired me. They can hire you again after, he said. Or hate you. I do not care. Something in his jaw tightened. He swallowed. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped. It is Noah. The name settled between them heavy and sharp. Maya closed her eyes once. For a flash, she saw a younger face under desert dust, grinning at her with a split lip, saying, Doc, I will buy you a beer if we ever get out of this. She opened her eyes to snow and the parking lot lights. We are wasting time, she said and pushed the door open. The cold slapped her fully now. She did not flinch. The guards at the bay entrance hesitated when they saw her, then stepped aside when Jason lifted his ID and did not slow down. The automatic doors parted to spill fluorescent light and warm stale air into the swirl of snow. Inside the hospital was no longer quiet. Alarms echoed down the corridor from the elevators that led to the roof. The smell had shifted from cleaning solution to metal and sweat and a thin trace of jet fuel that had hitchhiked down on flight suits. Elena was at the base of the service elevator hair, escaping her bun hand gripping a clipboard like a weapon. Her eyes widened when she saw Maya. "You are supposed to be in your truck." "Traffic," Maya said. Elena snorted one short sound that might have been a laugh under any other circumstances. The elevator doors opened and a stretcher burst out, pushed by 2 Navy medics in helmets and harnesses. The man on the stretcher was half buried under wires and tubing. His chest was wrapped in field bandages stained black-red. A port in his neck dripped blood into a hanging bag. His skin had the waxy pallor that no monitor needed to confirm. 32-year-old male, one medic called. Gunshot to the left chest, loss of pulses during transport, needle decompression performed. We regained a rhythm, but it is thin. We were told your trauma surgeon is Carter. Jason stepped to the side so they could see Maya. This is Dr. Carter. The medic blinked once as if she did not quite match whatever legend he had been told. Then he nodded sharply. Ma'am. From somewhere behind, a hospital administrator stammered, "We already informed you she is no longer employed here." Jason did not look back. "She works for us," he said, "and he dies without her." They were already wheeling into the trauma bay. Nurses scrambled to keep up, pulling monitors and carts. Someone tried to hand Maya a consent form. She did not take it. "What is his pressure showing?" she asked. 60 palpable, Elena answered, eyes on the monitor. Heart rate 150. "Get him to the operating room," Maya said. "Now." "There is no lead surgeon assigned, Cole," a breathless resident protested at the door to the main operating theaters. "Dr. Wexler is on call, but his ETA is 10 to 15 minutes. "Then we go without him," Maya said. "You do not have privileges," the resident said softer, as if hoping she would remember on her own. "You do not even work here." Maya glanced at the stretcher. Noah's lashes were clumped with dried sweat. A smear of soot traced along the edge of his jaw. Under the tape across his chest, his ribs rose in shallow jerks. "Prep 2, she said. "Thoracic tray. I want O-negative blood in the room before we start." There was a pause, half a second in real time, longer in the way everyone felt it. Eyes slid from her to the unconscious man, to Jason, who stood with his hands and fists at his sides. Elena moved first. "You heard her," the nurse said. "Room 2. Move." That broke it. The stretcher shot down the hall. The doors to operating 2 swung open, bright light spilling out like a square of midday in the artificial night. Inside, the air was cooler, drier. The stainless tables were laid out with instruments that caught the light in thin flashes as people rushed past. The anesthesiologist hustled in, already pulling on a cap. "Line is in," he said. "We are bagging. He is barely giving us anything." "Not for long," Maya said. She changed in a blur, locker door, slamming scrubs pulled on over skin that still smelled faintly of the last patient. In the scrub room, she washed her hands so fast that the water did not have time to warm. Fingers, palms, thumbs. The practice drilled in so deep that even now, with her heart tripping in her chest, the motion stayed exact. Above the sink, the small window showed a slice of sky. The helicopter on the roof flashed red through the snow, then was gone as the blades spun down. Maya felt the vibration in her bones. She stepped into the operating room and the noise shifted. Conversations cut off. The beeping machines took over. The anesthesiologist looked up over his mask. "Who is lead?" he asked. "I am," Maya said. There was no time to argue. They were already on a path. "Intubated, but saturations are in the 70s, the anesthesiologist said. "Blood pressure is barely there." "Open the chest pack," Maya said. "We are going in from the side. I want a rapid infuser ready and 3 units of O-negative hanging." Ben appeared at her elbow, mask in place, eyes wide. "You again," he said softly. "You can file a complaint later," she said. He swallowed. "Yes, doctor." They draped the chest, leaving a wide field. The skin under the betadine had gone yellow and sickly. She could feel the fragile rise and fall against her fingers. She made the incision. The scalpel slid through skin and muscle, then into the dark space between ribs. The smell of blood and antiseptic and something deeper filled the room. She worked between the ribs, cutting, spreading until the chest opened and the beating heart came into view too fast and too weak. For a second the world narrowed to that fist of muscle and the bloom of bright red on one side where it should not be. There, she said. A bullet had torn a groove in the outer wall of the left ventricle. Each contraction forced blood through the tear in a thin jet that pooled in the chest cavity. Ben whispered, "I have only seen that in textbooks." "Then you are about to see the better version," she said. Suction. The suction tip slid into place, slurping away the blood so she could see. The heart shivered under her fingers. The monitor stuttered. "Hands off the table." The anesthesiologist warned tension in his voice. "He is very unhappy with this." "So am I," she said. "Needle. Fine suture." The needle holder touched her palm. She had done this before, in a concrete room with one flickering lantern and sand blowing in through a hole where a window had been, with mortar thumps shaking dust from the ceiling and someone shouting that they were surrounded. Here the threats were quieter, but the margin felt the same. She placed the first stitch gently into the damaged heart muscle. The tissue resisted, then gave. The needle came out on the other side of the tear. A second stitch, a third. Each one tiny, each one timed to slide in as the heart relaxed to pull tight as it squeezed. "Pressure's climbing, Sectapa, Dolds. Sirs." The anesthesiologist said, surprise and relief wrestling in the words. 90/50, heart rate stabilizing. "Do not say it out loud," Elena murmured near his shoulder. Maya worked until the tear was closed and the pulsing red had turned into a slow, dark seep. She checked the rest of the chest, packed away, clots placed, drains. "Okay," she said at last, voice low. "Close the thoracotomy. Keep him warm. Keep the blood going." Her gloves were speckled with tiny dots of red where blood had found the gaps between instrument and hand. She stepped back so Ben could start to close. He glanced up at her, almost startled to find himself in charge of that part. "You have it," she said. He nodded. Outside the ring of light around the table, Jason stood against the wall in disposable shoe covers that looked wrong on his boots. His shoulders had sunk a little as if someone had let some of the air out. "How bad is it?" he asked. Maya stripped off her gloves one at a time and dropped them into the bin. "It was as bad as it looked," she said. "For now, his heart is holding." Jason closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was a sheen there that had nothing to do with the cold outside. "You are the same," he said. "Nothing shakes you." Maya felt the tremor in her own muscles finally arrive now that she did not need them steady. "You should see my coffee bill," she answered. He let out a short breath that might have been a laugh if it had not broken in the middle. Through the glass panel in the OR door, she saw movement. Halpern's silhouette, white coat arms folded. He was watching, but he did not come in. Maya turned away from the door and back to the table where Noah Reed lay, with his chest open and his heart still beating under the lights. They took Noah to the intensive care unit while the lights in the operating room were still hot. Maya walked beside the rolling bed, her hand resting lightly on the rail. The ventilator wheeled along its hoses, rising and falling in slow mechanical sighs. Noah's face was turned slightly toward her eyes, taped shut, the skin around them bruised by the tape and the strain. In the hallway outside the ICU doors, Jason stopped and laid a hand on his brother's foot under the blanket. It was the only part that was not wrapped in tubes or tape. "You are late for that beer," he said quietly. Noah did not answer, but the monitor showed the steady blip of his heart. That was more language than they had had an hour ago. A nurse from ICU took over at the door. "We have him," she said. "You can come in once he is settled." Jason nodded and let his hand fall away. The doors closed with a soft hiss. For a second, nobody spoke. Elena rolled her shoulders until they cracked. "I'm too old for nights like this," she said. Maya felt the fatigue hit in a slow wave. Her legs were heavy. Her stomach reminded her that she had not eaten since sometime the day before. Under the scrubs, her shirt stuck damp against her back. "Go sit," Elena said to her. "If you faint, I'm not charting your fall." Maya almost smiled. She followed Elena to a bench near the stairwell. The bench cushion was cracked and flat, but the act of sitting made her bones feel slightly less hollow. Jason stayed standing, leaning against the opposite wall, arms crossed, boots tracing a half circle of melted snow on the tile. Above them in some other part of the building, an alarm started and then stopped again. A PA announcement burbled for a respiratory therapist. The hospital returned to its regular chaos. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Halpern appeared walking fast. His white coat moved like a flag behind him. There was a man from the hospital security at his shoulder and a woman in a blazer with a hospital badge clipped to her lapel. Her hair was perfect. Her expression was not. "Dr. Carter," Halpern said. The way he said it made it sound like an accusation, not a title. Maya did not stand. She was not sure her legs would agree. "I believe we were clear earlier," Sochivian said. "You do not work here anymore." Elena made a small angry sound in her throat, but she did not get up either. Jason pushed away from the wall. "She just kept my brother breathing," he said. "We landed on your roof because we were told you had her." Halpern glanced at the brunette in the blazer. She stepped forward with a practiced half-smile. "I am Karen Fisher, Public Relations," she said. Meg, she said. "We are grateful for any assistance rendered in an emergency, Commander Reed. The hospital will, of course, coordinate with Navy administration about the details." Her eyes flicked to Maya. "However," she added, "for legal reasons, we will need to be very clear that Dr. Carter is not currently employed here in a capacity that allows independent surgical action." "Legal reasons," Jason repeated. The words sounded sour in his mouth. Maya pushed herself to her feet. The room swayed for a fraction of a second, then steadied. "It is fine," she said. "No," Jason said. He looked from Halpern to Fisher. "Where is this going, Quasish, he asked. "Because from where I am standing, your hospital just tried to pretend you do not know who saved your patient." Fisher lifted her palm slightly. "This is all very fresh," she said. "There is no need to make statements until we have reviewed the situation and agreed on appropriate language." "Language," Jason said. "There is a word you might want to practice. It is thank you." He turned to Maya. "I need some air, he said. "You should probably get some too." She did not argue. The air on the ICU floor had gone thick, full of the smell of cleaning agents and polite hostility. They took the stairs down. On the ground floor, the main lobby was busier than it should have been at that hour. People stood in loose clusters near the glass doors looking out. Outside in the half-circle driveway, news vans had arrived. Their satellite dishes pointed up toward the gray sky. Cables snaked across wet pavement. A man in a heavy jacket uncoiled more from a reel, his breath visible as he cursed under it. A woman in a bright red coat stood near the curb, a microphone in hand, talking to a camera operator who was adjusting focus. "They are quick," Jason said. "They must have heard the helicopter," Maya said. The first van had the logo of a local Chicago station on the side. The second was national. A third was still turning into the drive. Jason watched as a producer handed the woman in red a tablet, showed her something on the screen. The woman's eyebrows went up. She glanced toward the hospital doors, the helipad beacon still blinking faintly on the roof. "That is Kelly Nguyen," Jason said. "She did a piece on our unit last year." Maya knew the type, very calm eyes, very sharp. "Let us go out the side," she said. Jason did not move. "We hide," he said. "They will build their own story." One of the camera operators caught sight of them through the glass. He tapped Kelly's shoulder and pointed. She turned, saw Jason's uniform and Maya's scrubs, and something in her posture changed. She stepped forward, the microphone held low for the moment, not yet on. The lobby doors slid open as two visitors came in from outside. Cold air rushed in before the glass closed again. Kelly slipped through the gap with the ease of someone who viewed doors as suggestions. "Commander Reed," she said, "lucky you are not camera shy." "Morning, Kelly," Jason said. He sounded tired. She glanced at the ID on his chest, then at Maya's bare scrub top. "I heard a Navy helicopter landed on a civilian hospital roof," she said. "What did I miss?" "A bad night for my brother," Jason said. "A good one for him now." Kelly's gaze moved to Maya and stayed there. There was no judgment in it, just assessment. "And you are the surgeon who went in?" she asked. Maya felt the heat of the lights from the lobby ceiling on her face. She could still smell blood under the latex and antiseptic on her skin. "I was the surgeon," she said. "Dr. Carter has already been informed that she was acting outside institutional policy," Karen Fisher said, appearing beside them like she had stepped out of the wall. Her smile was tight. "The hospital will be issuing a statement later." Kelly tipped her head slightly, not taking the bait. "Acting outside policy," she said, "but inside the operating room." She looked at Jason. "Off the record for a moment," she said. Why fly a SEAL into downtown Chicago instead of a naval hospital?" Jason hesitated. His eyes slid to Maya. "Because we did not need a building," he said. "We needed her." Kelly watched his face while he said it. Then she lifted the microphone. "This is not off the record anymore," she said. "Say that again." Fisher stepped in. "I'm going to have to ask you to respect the privacy of our patients and staff," she said. Kelly kept her eyes on Jason. The camera behind her started its slow zoom. Jason took a breath that seemed to scrape his lungs on the way in. 3 years ago, he said, my team was pinned down in Kunar province. 14 wounded, no way out. We had 1 medic. We assumed we were done. The lobby sounds receded. Even the security guard behind the desk watched him now. She turned a bombed-out house into an operating room and worked for 18 hours, he said. He nodded toward Maya. 14 in, 14 out, no body bags. Commander, Fisher tried again. This is not the time. It is exactly the time, he said. Kelly looked at Maya. Is that true? She asked. Maya felt the wall at her back. The glass, the cold on the other side, the weight of eyes inside. I did my job, she said. Your job, Kelly repeated, that you are not allowed to officially have in this building. The camera light glowed red. On a different screen in a different place months earlier, footage from Kunar had been a blur of dust and heat. Now it came back to Maya in pieces. A doorway without a door. A low ceiling holding the smoke of too many explosions. Soldiers on the floor, on tables, on anything that would bear weight. A radio crackling with bad news, then going silent when the batteries died. Her own voice hoarse saying next to a medic whose hands refused to stop shaking. She remembered Noah there, younger, the same shape of face under grime and bandage. He was not the worst off that day. He had kept trying to sit up. We are not done, Doc, he had said before finally passing out. We have sunrise tickets. Outside the ruined building, Rotor Wash had pounded the dirt as the final extraction came in. She had stood in that wind and watched the last stretcher load, her ears ringing, her hands raw, her muscles rubber. The pilot had given her a thumbs up as if it was a normal medevac, not the end of something impossible. Now another helicopter had brought Noah back into her reach. Another wind had shaken another roof. In the lobby, Kelly lowered the microphone a bit. There is a lot here, she said. I'm going to need comment from the Department of Defense. You will get it, Jason said. Maya stepped sideways out of the center of the group. I have to check on my patient, she said. Fisher seized the chance. Dr. Carter needs rest, the PR woman said. She has been through a very long night. We ask that you give us time to review events. Kelly let them move. She did not look satisfied, but she smiled for the camera as the producer counted her down. 3, 2, 1, he said, fingers folding. This is Kelly Nguyen reporting from St. Gabriel Medical Center, she said into the lens. A Navy helicopter on a downtown roof, a SEAL officer fighting for his life inside, and questions about a combat surgeon who may have saved him without permission to operate. The red light stayed on as she spoke. The words left the hospital and went out through the cables and the air and into living rooms that had never smelled blood on aluminum, never heard a heart stutter back to life. Maya turned away from the scene and walked toward the ICU, the echo of rotor blades still present somewhere under her pulse. The ICU had its own weather. The air was cooler, drier, kept at a constant that ignored whatever was happening outside. The lights were softer than in the operating rooms, but they never went off. Machines hummed and sighed and clicked in slow patterns that did not care about clocks. Noah lay in bed 3 nearest the window. The blinds were half closed, letting in a thin strip of gray morning that cut across his blanket. He had more lines in him now than he had scars. The ventilator breathed for him, chest rising in measured lifts. A chest tube box collected diluted blood at the side of the bed. The monitor traced out his heart rhythm in green, a small mountain range repeating itself endlessly. Maya stood at the foot of the bed, fingers hooked lightly into the rail. Without the field bandages and harness, he looked younger, not older. The harsh outdoor tan was gone, leaving his face flat against the pillow. The intubation tape pulled at the corners of his mouth, rounding them down. A nurse adjusted a drip-check pupils with a small flashlight, then moved on to the next room. The curtain brushed softly behind her. You picked a dramatic way to get a room with a view, Maya said. Her voice barely disturbed the air. Noah did not move. A blip on the monitor jumped slightly, then settled. This is the part where you are supposed to argue with me, she said. She watched the rise and fall of his chest. The tube fogged and cleared. The machine kept count. A memory nudged at the back of her mind. Same frame, different colors. Mud instead of tile. Lantern light instead of LEDs. Noah propped against a wall with a field dressing over his side, saying, Doc, when we get home, I'm never seeing another hospital again. She had told him that was a good plan. Afghanistan has a sick sense of humor, she said. So does Chicago. The strip of gray light on his blanket brightened as the clouds shifted outside. Somewhere up on the roof, the helicopter that had brought him in was probably already gone, refueled, and pointed back toward a base. Maya checked the drains, scanned the ventilator settings, then stepped back. There was nothing more she could do from this side of the bed. Do not waste it, she said so quietly that even she barely heard it. You already paid once. She left the ICU and felt the change in air as the doors sighed shut behind her. By the time she reached the ground floor, the lobby televisions had found the story. The screens hung in opposite corners, usually filled with weather maps or talk shows with bright couches. Now they showed the front of the hospital she was standing inside from the curb level. The shot caught the emergency entrance, the spinning red helipad beacon on the roof above, and the edge of one Navy rotor blade that had not quite cleared the frame. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, Navy helicopter lands on City Hospital, SEAL officer in critical condition. A smaller line scrolled under it, already asking a different question. Who is the mystery surgeon? Volume stayed low. The lobby was full of people, half watching, half pretending not to. Maya kept walking. Her locker still held her street clothes. Nobody had cleared it yet. She changed in silence, folding her scrubs into a neat pile on the bench instead of tossing them into the bin. The blue fabric was stiff in places where blood and saline had dried. When she stepped outside, the snow had turned to a fine sleet that needled any exposed skin. The sky was a flat sheet of metal. The news vans were still there, sprouting cables and antennae. A satellite dish turned slowly, searching. She slid into her truck and closed the door. The cab muffled the outside just enough to make the world feel distant. Her hands stung when she wrapped them around the steering wheel. She had not had gloves all night. Traffic on Lakeshore was light. The city moved the way it always did, horns and buses and the long snake of cars heading downtown. If not for the dried blood on her cuticles, she could have been anyone on their way home from a late shift. Her apartment was on the third floor of a brick building that listened to the trains as they passed. The staircase smelled like old paint and someone else's cooking. Inside, the rooms were small but clean. The furniture was simple secondhand. A plant on the windowsill did its best near a pane of glass that leaked cold. She locked the door, dropped her keys into the chipped bowl on the counter, and stood in the middle of the living room without moving for a long time. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, then again, then a third time. She ignored it for the first two. The third one would not be quiet. She picked it up. 8 unread messages lit the screen. Some were numbers she knew, some were not. Elena, you home? Unknown. Ma'am, this is HM2 Jackson. We heard about Noah. Please tell me he is still with us. Another from a number tagged as Ortiz with no first name. Did they really fire you for doing what you do best? The last one at the top was from a contact she had never named, just filed as old CO. Saw the feed. You okay? She stared at that one for a moment, then dropped the phone back onto the table without replying. The television remote lay beside it. She hesitated, then picked that up instead. The local news was already on the story. The same shot of the hospital front repeated. The same clip of the helicopter on the roof, shot from someone's phone in a nearby apartment, shaky and grainy. Then an interior shot of the lobby from the angle where Kelly had stood earlier. The anchor behind the desk turned to the camera with grave eyes. Sources tell us a Navy SEAL officer remains in critical condition tonight at St. Gabriel Medical Center, she said. The Navy diverted a helicopter from the East Coast to land on the hospital roof in what appears to have been a last-chance emergency. There are also questions about reports that the surgeon who operated on the officer may not in fact be on staff. The screen cut to Kelly standing where Maya had left her microphone in hand, hair damp from the sleet. That is right, Jenna, Kelly said. We have confirmed that a surgeon identified by multiple Navy sources as Dr. Maya Carter performed a high-risk emergency procedure on the wounded SEAL here behind me. We have also learned that Dr. Carter had been terminated from her position at this hospital less than an hour before the helicopter landed. They flashed an old photo, not one Maya remembered ever posing for. She was in uniform in that one, the rank pin visible on her collar, the background a bland government building wall. They went back that far, she said to the empty room. The segment cut to Jason recorded earlier. He looked like he had not slept in days, which was true. The caption under his face read, CMDR Jason Reed, U.S. Navy SEAL. 3 years ago, my team was trapped in Kunar Province, he said. He said. We took heavy fire, 14 wounded, no way out. The medic who kept us alive was Dr. Carter. Today, she kept my brother alive. She had to break hospital rules to do it. Maya turned off the sound. His mouth kept moving on the screen, but the room fell quiet again. The muted voices looked like a different language. She shut off the television. The apartment held the noises it always held. A neighbor's radio through the wall, the rattle of a train on the tracks nearby, the building's old heater groaning in the corner. None of it had anything to do with heart monitors or helicopters. She sat on the edge of the couch and pressed her fingers into her eyes until colors sparked. The phone buzzed again. She let it. Back at St. Gabriel, higher up than any patient bed, a different group watched the same broadcast. The conference room on the 12th floor had a long table and too many chairs. There were no family photos on the walls, only framed issues of medical journals, and a print of the Chicago skyline. At the far end, a large screen played the news feed. Kelly's face filled the screen, then Maya's old photo, then Jason's interview. Halpern sat at the head of the table. His tie was still straight, but he had loosened the top button of his shirt. Karen Fisher had her laptop open, fingers flying over the keyboard as she paused and rewound specific parts of the piece. "This is bad," one of the board members said. He was in his 60s with a neat gray beard and a habit of adjusting his glasses when he was uncomfortable. He adjusted them twice. "It is tilted," Fisher said. "They framed it as hospital versus hero. It will get worse once the national outlets pick it up." A woman from legal shook her head slowly. "She operated without credentialing," she said. "If this patient does not make it, we are fully exposed. If he does make it, we still have a surgeon who defied a direct restriction and a director who fired her for saving a previous patient. That is not an easy narrative to fix." Halpern stared at the frozen image of his own entrance lobby on the screen. "I did not fire her for saving a patient," he said quietly. "I fired her for ignoring the rules that keep us standing." "That is not how it is going to read," Fisher said. "Right now it reads like you fired her because she saved him." "She went into the abdomen of a man without authorization," Halpern said louder. "You know how that looks in court." "I know how this looks on television," Fisher replied. A small chime sounded from the conference phone in the center of the table. An incoming call. The number on the display had more digits than a normal local line. Fisher glanced at it, then at Halpern. "That is DC," she said. He scrubbed a hand over his face, then pressed the button. "St. Gabriel Medical Center, this is Dr. Halpern," he said. The voice that came back was calm and precise with a hint of clipped impatience. "This is Captain Sloan, Office of the Surgeon General, Department of the Navy," the caller said. "I'm told you had a difficult night." Halpern sat up straighter. "We did, Captain. I can assure you that we provided every resource available." "One in particular," Sloan said, Dr. Maya Carter. There was a small pause in which everyone in the room looked everywhere except at each other. "Dr. Carter is no longer employed by us," Halpern said. "Her status here was complicated." "Her status with us is not," Sloan said. "She holds active Department of Defense surgical clearance. She is authorized to operate on our personnel anywhere on American soil when requested by commanding officers. That includes your hospital." The legal counsel sat back in her chair. The board member with the glasses took them off entirely. "Captain, we were not informed of that arrangement," Halpern said. "You did not ask," Sloan replied. "Our teams do not call lightly. When they ask for Carter, it is because they have already seen what she can do when the rest of us have run out of plans." The phone line crackled softly. "We will be coordinating with state health authorities," Sloan added. "I suggest you prepare to answer some questions about why a surgeon with her record was sidelined on her own trauma floor." The call ended. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. On the muted screen, the chyron on the news changed. "Combat surgeon at center of controversy. Defense Department confirms role in war zone rescue." It was no longer just a local segment. It had become something else. Spring came without asking anyone's permission. Snow melted into black slush along the curbs, and the river turned from steel to something almost green. The city swapped salt stains for pollen-heavy coats for lighter ones. The helicopters kept flying. Inside St. Gabriel, the conference room on the 12th floor filled again. Different day, different tension. This time the door was open. Board members sat around the long table with paper folders and tablets in front of them. The legal counsel had a stack of documents at her elbow. Karen Fisher had a new hairstyle and a tired look. Halpern was not at the head of the table. He sat halfway down, hands folded suit, impeccable. The chairperson cleared her throat. "Let us keep this brief," she said. "We have had visits from the State Health Department, from the Navy, from the press. All of them are asking different versions of the same question." She glanced at the file in front of her. "Why did this institution limit the practice of a surgeon with a documented record of high acuity trauma care and active federal clearance?" she said. "And what are we going to do about it?" Halpern's jaw moved once. "I made a call based on the information I chose to focus on," he said. "I was afraid of losing what we've built here." "You almost lost something else," the board member with the glasses said. "And we almost lost more than that." There was no anger in his voice, only a dull kind of disappointment. The vote was not dramatic. It did not need to be. Hands raised one after another until it was done. Later, as they filed out, Halpern caught sight of Maya in the hallway. She had been waiting in a chair outside Scrub Top under a plain jacket badge clipped to her pocket again. The temporary one they had given her after the hearings looked too clean. He stopped. "They want my resignation," he said. She watched him for a second. "You are giving it to them," she said. He nodded once. "I forgot how to count the right things," he said. "You did not." She did not answer that. Look after the place, he said instead, almost quietly. Make it worth the landing fees. He walked away with his white coat over his arm. The days that followed settled into new shapes. Some were loud, some were not. One afternoon, sunlight poured through the high windows of the simulation lab, turning the plastic skin of the training mannequin a strange warm color. An alarm tone chirped from the dummy monitor. Ben stood at the head of the bed, hand on the bag, valve breathing hard, though it was only air in and out of rubber. Pressure is crashing, one of the younger residents said, reading from the screen. What do you want us to do, Dr. Cho? Ben hesitated for half a second, then shook his head at himself. We do not wait, he said. You know what you're looking at. Call the code call for blood start compressions if you lose the line. His voice grew steadier as he spoke. The room started to move the way an OR moves when people understand their roles. At the far end of the lab, Maya leaned against the wall with her arms crossed. Elena stood beside her cup of coffee in hand. He is getting there, Elena said. They all are, Maya said. You hate it when they call it that rule, do you not? Elena said after a moment. Maya looked at the laminated poster by the door. It was new, the hospital's logo at the top, some legal language beneath it, and in thicker print a single sentence in immediate life. Threatening emergencies, physicians are authorized to initiate care. Prior to formal consent, decisions must be medically justified and documented. Under it, in smaller type, a title someone in administration had liked. Carter Provision. She did not smile, but something in her shoulders eased. I hate anything that sounds like a slogan, she said. Still, Elena said. Nice to see it laminated. Word had spread farther than the poster. Other hospitals called. Residents mentioned it by name as if it had always been there. The term showed up in articles, usually next to the grainy old photo of her in uniform. She did not read most of them. She read charts. She taught. She slept sometimes more often than before. On an afternoon that could have belonged to any season, a delivery arrived at the front desk. The clerk signed for it, frowning at the lack of return address, then wheeled the tall white box up in the service elevator. He found Maya with Jason on the rooftop. They were standing by the helipad watching a regular medevac helicopter lift away. It rose with a steady whine, tilted and skimmed off toward the lake, its belly catching the sun. The rotor wash threw loose grit against their legs. The clerk cleared his throat. Dr. Carter, he is. He said. This came for you. The box was covered in plastic to protect it from the wind. She peeled it back. Inside, a wreath of fresh flowers sat around a small wooden plaque. The plaque was dark-stained letters carved into it with care. For our doc. Jason reached in and turned it slightly. There were smaller letters under the top line. You keep us coming home. From the teams, he said. The clerk looked between them, realized this was not a moment for questions, and left. They send one every year now, Jason said. To the base. They wanted to send this one to you. She traced the edge of the plaque with one finger. If they keep doing that, she said, we will need more wall. We have enough roof, he said. He nodded toward the small metal sign bolted to the railing at the edge of the pad. It had been there a week, but she still was not used to it. Carter Deck. The letters were simple black on brushed steel, no flourish. She stood very still, the wind lifting the edges of her hair. I did not ask for that, she said. I know, Jason said. They set the wreath down by the sign. Someone had swept the rooftop recently. Even the painted circle of the landing zone looked fresher. The city stretched out below all brick and glass and moving points of light. The river reflected strips of sky. Far off, another helicopter was a small, dark insect against the clouds heading somewhere else, with someone else's emergency under its blades. Maya rested her hand on the railing. Do you still hear it at night? Jason asked, eyes on the sky. The rotors, she said. He nodded. Sometimes, she said. Less than before. She turned the paracord on her wrist. It had frayed more since the winter threads loosening at the edges. The scar beneath it was the same pale line it had always been. You ever going to take that off, Bessic? He asked. She shook her head. It reminds me of work I still owe, she said. They stood together in silence for a while, watching the city think its loud, busy thoughts. Somewhere below them, a pager buzzed. A code was called. Feet started down a hallway, moving faster. The old building shifted to make room for whatever was coming through its doors. Maya listened for a second, then stepped back from the edge. I have a class, Wipiksa, she said. Jason gave a small salute, nothing formal, just 2 fingers at his brow. Go make more trouble, he said. She took the stairs instead of the elevator. Her footsteps rang on the metal. On the landing below, noise grew, the smells sharpened into the familiar mix of antiseptic coffee and something human underneath it all. When she rounded the last corner toward the training lab, she could hear the residents talking over each other, arguing about timing and risk, trying to find the line between caution and action. She touched the paracord one more time, a reflex, then let her hand fall. The door opened on its hinges, and the sound of their voices rose to meet her. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.